Good afternoon, everybody. Lisa Moorish here, and we are on the emergence of Black Britain through music, art and culture. And the discussion today is the future of the creative industry. I have some wonderful guests today. I have Mark Baxter, filmmaker. Welcome, Mark.
Hiya.
And we have Karl Ohiri, photographer. Mark,
Yep.
Karl.
Hiya.
Wonderful to have you. And we have Alice Offley, singer.
Yeah.
Alice Offley, apologies, my God. I've got my glasses on, but I think I need a different strain. And we have singer Antique. Okay, hi Antique. Sorry, we have a bit of a switch round with guests today. So welcome Antique. It's wonderful to have you, and it's wonderful to have you all. So guys, how are we all doing? Let's start with you, Mark. How are you doing at the moment, and how's it going for you?
Yeah, I'm fed up. I'm fed up with this. I've got to be honest with you. I'm on the Zoom every day. It's it's good. It's good to keep in touch with people, but I'm a people person. I need to go out and engage with people, and whether it's in a pub, a cafe, wherever it might be, I need a bit of that. So I need to bounce off people. So yeah, I'm all right. Work is a struggle. There's no two ways about that. But yeah, just doing what we can, keeping it going, and the Zoom has become, the networking. That's all that's left really for us, and we're just trying to make the best of that. But yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it's been 10 months, 11 months, wherever it is. Definitely had enough of this. Definitely.
I agree with you, Mark. I think maybe all of us might be feeling like that. And like you said, and here we are sat on Zoom. Unfortunately,
Yep.
in the same room as each other at the moment. And this discussion today will be touching on that stuff. What's the future? What's going to happen now? And we don't know how long things are going to happen for in relation to the elephant in the room, the dreaded COVID. Karl, you're a photographer. Are you getting out much at all at the moment? Are you still able to take pictures and do use your creativity in the best way you can?
It's been quite difficult working within the arts and practicing as an artist. On the one hand, there's been lots of opportunities from through the pandemic. Lots of people have been doing different initiatives for the creative industries, like the art sector, like myself. But like Baxter was saying, it's just hard to get out. I like to get out. I like to meet people. I like to socialize. I like to kind of build up narratives. I'm really a people person as well. So being stuck inside and not being able to kind of go out has been very, very difficult for myself and many of my colleagues and just the whole industry, really.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? And Alice and Antique, you're both singers. Antique, let's start with you. Are you there, my dear? Alice, what about you? Alice, let's start with you. What's going on for you at the moment? You're sitting there with your keyboard, by the way. It's wonderful vision to see. For I'm looking at Alice, she's got a keyboard in front of her. So, and obviously, I mean, you're all wonderful artists, and it's so important, I think, to people at the moment, especially art is important. It's struggling, I think, isn't it, with lack of support. So what's going on with you, Alice? I mean, what are you doing? How are you getting your creativity out there and dealing with this at the moment?
On the first lockdown, I was really creative. I wrote an album and the songs were about staying in and all of that. And I recorded it myself because I've got a home studio. And that was great. But I didn't realise, none of us realised it would be as long as this. Yeah. And, financially, it's really difficult. Interaction and human contact is kind of what keeps us sort of sane, I think. We need people, but it's not the same on the internet, and it's certainly not the same financially. A lot of what I'm doing, I'm just doing for the passion of it. Keeps me busy, but it's not getting me any money. But I'm not doing it for money. But I used to be able to gig a few times a week. That was my job. I used to play in bars and hotels in town, or I'd get an acting job. And there's still acting, things are still being filmed, TV and film, but there's many more actors going for every job now. So the competition is huge.
So you're acting as well, Alice, as alongside singing. Apologies, I didn't know that you're an actress as well.
Yeah.
So the double kind of whammy of not being able to do that as well. So the competition is way. I relate to that one. And Antique, what about you? How are you feeling with what's going on? What have you been doing to keep yourself sane in this madness?
I've just passed a course in teaching. I've been doing like loads of production courses, videography courses. I've just been writing, collaborating with others, networking, getting involved in lots of different opportunities. Had I been up and down like a headless chicken, I don't think I would have had time to do all of that. For me, the lockdown's been really positive. Obviously, financially, it's been a bit up and down, but I've actually had a lot of support from like the Musicians Union and Help Musicians UK. So I've been quite fortunate, and some other funding. And everything that I wanted to do that I was kind of struggling to find time to do before, because I was always on the go, always performing, going here, going there, I've actually been able to do it. And I think it's been a positive, even though I am over the lockdown at the moment. Like I'm just over it now, but it's been really positive for me anyway. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. And I mean, I personally felt the same with the first lockdown. I felt like great, and I really grabbed all these sort of opportunities that wasn't maybe so focused or clear. I didn't have a clear enough mind because I was like yourself, caught up in the rat race a little bit. But this lockdown 3, I'm a little kind of, you know. But anyway, guys, you know, it's really great to hear from you, and it's good to hear different perspectives. And for people out there listening as well, if there are any musicians listening, it's great to hear that Musicians Union are helping people, and the other group that you mentioned, Antique. So that's really useful for people if you're out there and you're listening and you're wondering what help you can get and support. So look, guys, I'm going to lead you into a discussion now. Now, there's a few questions here I have that, you know, we'll go around and we'll chat about your perspective on things, what you think about these things that we want to touch on today. So the first question I have for all of you, and we'll go round and we'll discuss amongst ourselves here, and we'd love to hear what you all think. But so how do you think the creative industry has been affected by COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter? We'll start with, who wants to go first? Should we go? We'll go with you, Karl. You've caught my eye first in the box
there. So how do I think it's been affected by, well, let's start with Black Lives Matter. I think it's had a massive impact on the creative industries, like especially like within the arts, within music, etc. But definitely within the arts, it's had a big impact, because I think that with a lot of the stuff that was going on in the States and things like that, it's forced a lot of the industry to really think about how, you know, Black people can be more included in the conversation. You know, that when it was all kicking off, it was very well just putting a black box on your social media platform, and actually kind of, you know, rallying with solidarity in that respect. But I think that it's more than that, you know, and I think that moving forward, I think that the conversation that arose out of the Black Lives Matter movement has trickled down into all different areas of the creative industries, and it's just made people more conscious that there needs to be more that needs to be done. It's an ongoing dialogue. And yeah, there is responsibilities and accountability for the inclusion of Black artists and other minority groups within the arts and creative industries.
Are you feeling positive? Are you specifically feeling positive, Mark, personally, from your point of view? Are you feeling that there's things are moving and changing in the way they should?
I mean, I can't speak personally with the COVID, first of all. I mean, all the things that we had, I mean, I work for myself, I'm a writer, I'm also a filmmaker, and all the things we had lined up to make this year or finish off this year all stopped in March. Also lost my mum. My mum died in March this year, which was really tough. So as the lockdown hit, we had the funeral to deal with, which was a nightmare. So for 6-8 weeks of that, after that, I basically give up. I couldn't really cope with what was going on. So then I caught COVID. I actually got it. I got a whack of it. I'm still affected a little bit now. It's been quite a tough year one way or the other. So I got to be honest, work took a bit of a back seat for quite a while. Even though I was trying to get things to happen and you know, finish them off, but I had other things to deal with. So that was quite tough. The Black Lives Matter, yeah, I mean, that's a massive story. As Karl said, it's an ongoing situation. And I think it's got, from my point of view, I want to see some action more than just words. You know, there's loads of words going on, and it's great that everyone's getting behind it and showing the support for it. But at the moment, it's tough to do too much. We all know that it's tough to really do hell of a lot. The industry, my part of the industry, because I literally, you know, I do a lot of self-publishing or self-financing because I find it very, very difficult to get into the mainstream. I've done some films. I made a couple of films for Sky Arts, and I've had meetings with BBC, etc. But it's very, very tough. I come from outside this industry completely. I started quite late in all this. I was around 35 when I first started writing, so it's been quite a struggle to make a career of it. But I've been full time since 2008, so I've made enough money one way or the other. But you got to, it's hustle. You got to hustle from where I'm from. You know, you can't always get a book deal. You can't always get a film deal. So you have to go out and make it happen yourself, which I've done. But up to this year, and then it all stopped. I mean, obviously, you know, I hope to pick up the pieces and go again. And I hope that includes everybody. When we all go back, if we ever get freedom and get a nice parole out of all this, it's everyone join, you know, everyone get involved and join in. And I hope that happens. I mean, from you know, looking from the inside out, I think it will happen. I think it will, you know, if everyone keeps the pressure up and the positivity up, I think it can happen. But it's a battle. There's no two other ways about it. It's going to be a battle. But that's all we've had I've had that for many years. So I'm going to carry that on, and hopefully we can get to the other end of it all. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry those things have happened for you, Mark. I really am. With your mum, that's a very tough experience for you to have, especially at the start of it all.
Yeah, it was very tough.
And I mean, as you say, you think that something positive will come out of this. And for me, I think I mean, after the Spanish flu, they talked about the Roaring Twenties, so that's apparently part of the reason that you had the Roaring Twenties. People just went for it, you know, and grabbed life with both hands. And I think there is a beautiful thing with that. Like you said, there's a lot of talk, and then it continues to be much more action around the Black Lives Matter movement, in my personal opinion. But those two things together, coming out of this, I think could be something really brilliant. You know, the fact that these two things are kind of somehow joined in some crazy cosmic way, if for want of a better way of describing it. And what about you, Alice? What is your take on how are you feeling the industry and Black Lives Matter movement has been affected the industry been affected by COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement?
I agree with what you just said. It almost seemed like the timing was cosmic. I mean, awareness has needed to be raised for a very long time. And all of a sudden, we're all at home looking at our screens and watching these atrocities going on. And I'm glad that there's more of a realization, but there's still quite a long way to go. Personally, I haven't been affected by Black Lives Matter, obviously being a white woman, but I'm aware of how it is. And I think, I mean, I've seen more castings for Black people, like on acting websites and things like that. And I would hope that more doors are going to open. But I think culturally, like, there's a long way for it to still go. So England represents in its art what's actually happening in England and the landscape of the people, not just Black, like all smaller groups of people.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, with casting, I've noticed that it's been a really a pleasing sort of thing to see that there actually has been huge sort of leaps in that area, and not a day too soon. So that is a really real positive thing.
And I think there's more monitoring of diversity now. People are more aware. People who are making the decisions, they need to be more aware of it. And solidarity is great, but it has to be action, right? And the people can make the change. It's not just talking about it; they have to actually do it.
100%. And what about you, Antique? How do you feel about that? And like you say, you've been dealing with Musicians Union and certain bodies in the industry. How do you think the industry's been affected by this virus, alongside as well with the big uprising with the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, all of the live events have been shut down, and that is quite devastating. I think as musicians or just creative people, we have a big responsibility to uplift people and inspire them and bring about change or impact in whatever way. So the fact that it's kind of gatherings and gigs and stuff have been shut down, people haven't been able to come and experience us in that way, well, as a musician anyway. But I think I've been doing some stuff online, and I was more of a live performer, and I had that on lock. But when I performed online, I realized that people still experienced me and what I had to offer in the same way. So I think that we can still connect with people. It's just not in, like, it's not live, but we can still like give them what we have got to give. It's just different, and it's a bit strange as well. It's very strange. It's strange times at the moment.
Can I respond?
In terms of Black...
Sorry,
I
was going to respond to your question because it was really an interesting one. So I was going to just respond, but I'll let you finish and then I'll come in.
In terms of Black Lives Matter, the way I see it is, I'm someone who's been affected by this. I'm of mixed race, but the society sees me as a Black female. That's how it is. I've been affected by it. I think that the whole Black Lives Matter thing is a trend at the moment. I think it had to take Black Lives Matter and people putting pressure on certain industries for people to open up casting to other cultures and people of different colours and creeds. I think that there is a long way to go, like someone else said, and I just think that at the moment it's a trend, like Blackness is cool. And I think like until the Black Lives Matter happened, like people weren't really trying to do anything about the situation, but we were all feeling it. We've been experiencing it for years, do you know what I mean? In terms of like music anyway, you know, Black people's music has been taken and repurposed and changed, and different faces. Like no one actually gives us credit for what we contribute to creativity. That's how I feel. And I feel that like, it's a really good thing that people are talking about inclusion and stuff like this. But my thing is about intention and why are you doing it? A lot of people are doing it because they want to save face on their platforms and they want to look good. But really and truly, how long are you going to keep that up for? And for me to actually have faith in this whole Black Lives Matter thing and how people are responding to it, I want to see, like, for me, I want to see like action, like someone else said, and I want to see long-term action, to be honest with you, because we're all human, we all bleed the same, and it's not a color and this, that, and the other. It's about us as a human race. I think the COVID has actually shown us about human and human kindness and also human terribleness, do you know what I mean? Because there's been a lot of ugliness, and I think we all need to come together and be as one. And I think creatives help to do that, because I don't see color, I don't see culture, I just hear music. I don't care what you look like. If the music's good, if the creativity is dope, I'm supporting, do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, no, and Karl, you wanted to say something in response to Antique.
Yeah, what was Antique was saying, I was just she made a mention of obviously within the music industry, you were saying that people like this idea of being able to still make the music and have, you know, a similar like impact. I haven't found that the same, like within the arts. I found it quite difficult, you know, within the arts. When the COVID happened, everything shut down, all the museums shut down, all the galleries shut down. And it forced us to there was a lot of virtual galleries that were popping up all over the place where you could experience the art in a virtual way. And I had an exhibition early on in the last year. And what it made me think about is the physicality of the art. You know, like these were photographs, these were things that you really need to kind of engage with the surface, the texture. And I just felt that within the virtual world that had been created for these images, it just wasn't the same. I think that with music, it can be a bit more, I don't know if I could say it would be a bit more different. We're so used to images and everything on Instagram, so we're used to seeing images in this digital form. But I just felt that it was very difficult to get that same kind of touch and that kind of empathy that comes out of the work and from the gallery space, like online. It was like all the life had been sucked out of it and just very dry. It became quite a dry experience. And although during the time it was, you know, of course we had to think about it positively, but I don't really know if that is really sustainable and the way that, at least for within the arts, I would like to see it kind of go forward. And then the second thing that Antique was mentioning about the Black Lives Matter, I totally agree with her on that, about the, I just wanted to interject about the idea of Black Lives Matter being a trend. As I said, with a lot of big companies, smaller companies, galleries all over the creative industries, they were posting like Black Lives Matter, like squares and all this kind of stuff. And I think that what people really realized was that there was, Black lives equals capital. People knew that they can, by supporting that, it's it's a trend. It's a big trend. It taps into something. It taps into a sentiment of the times. But like Antique was saying, I want to see things being sustainable. I don't want it to be just something that just comes in for a couple of months, even a year. It's like, how can we create these real, foundations to make this thing something that's long term?
Yeah, and that really does lead nicely onto my next question, because we're kind of in this, we're already in that. And the question is what direction do you think the creative industry should now take after the Black Lives Matter movement and COVID-19? And you're touching on that right now. And I think what you both raised, you and Antique, is that there is some element of a trend and branding with something that is about people's lives we're talking about here. And I know exactly what you mean. I feel exactly the same. It's like, wow, let's kind of bank on this, let's see what we can, how we can, and the question is it going to be long term? Are people going to carry, and how do we, so guys, we'll jump back to you, Mark. What do you think about that? How do you, on the back of what we're saying, especially with COVID-19, is COVID-19 a brand? Are people exploiting that as well? You've got Jeff Bezos with Amazon. Are we all going to be working for Amazon in 5 years?
The biggest question is going to be what's left out there when you go back into the field, when you go back out, when everyone's a bit of freedom and you can go out mixing with people, and what's left, who's out there, what investors are left, what companies are left. People I've been speaking to that I've worked with previously, they put everything on hold. There's no real money about at the moment. If there is, they're hanging on to it. So I know there is filming going on. I've just started. I've been making documentaries since 2015. I've self-funded quite a few of those, or through investors, and then that leads on to getting broadcasters involved. But it's a long journey. But I'm not quite sure what's there when we go back. We just tentatively started talking to people this year, and we're trying to get some commitment of people. What can they do for us? And again, I've got to go back with what Karl said about the trend of all that, the Black Lives Matter. That worries me as a white guy looking in. It's become a little bit trendy. And you wonder how long term that is. I just hope when we all get back that the COVID and the Black Lives Matter, whatever it's done for people, it stays as a thing that they remember and that they act on it, and not just go back to what it was like before. And touch briefly on the, like you mentioned about live gigs and online gigs. I did loads of online gigs when the first lockdown, Ronnie Scott's, etc., and it was good. And I felt for the artist, but it was never the same as going in, going somewhere, sitting down, talking, having a drink, and that live experience is something that I'm badly missing. I don't know what it's like for performers. I can only imagine, but as an audience, even like you say, galleries and stuff, it's just the buzz of going somewhere. I would have thought you'd have missed just going to a gallery and walking around a gallery on your own for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But it's such a, we've been deprived of all that. It's so hard. But again, making things after this depends. I suppose depends what level you're at. If you're on a ground level, a lot of us are, well, I am anyway, trying to get up to another level. You do wonder what's there for you to go for. But it won't stop. If you're not in this industry to make it easy for yourself, there's no way this is an easy way of making a few bob. It's a struggle from day one, which we accept. I'm not moaning. That's just how it is. But you just hope the level playing field is more there in the next few months.
100%. I agree with you. How do we, the question is, I suppose, in terms of creative industry, this would give in a general, obviously you're all the people on this chat here, this discussion are all different, and they are, like Karl said, it's different in the creative arts industry as well than it might be in the music or film. They are different things and they work in different ways. And like we say, how going forward to the creative industry deal with this, alongside with the Black Lives Matter movement and this terrible disease. we're talking about a thing that we all need and we all create for, which is human connection. We like to be next to each other, don't we? We like to sort of sweat and sort of drink next to each other, if we drink or if we don't, or whatever we do. And we can't do that. So, I mean, Alice, what do you think about how do we, what do you think? What's your take on how we go forward and how the creative industry is one big thing, but obviously there's separate things. You can talk from your point of view as a musician and an actress.
Mm-hmm. I think, like Mark said, none of us entered this industry thinking it would be easy, but it's got harder. It was hard already, you know, as a creative person, because you are constantly fighting for your art. And now it's even harder because the platforms have kind of been taken away. I know we've got the internet, and that is amazing. I've done some Facebook Live gigs myself on my piano, and I've watched other people do Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives. And I must say, when I've watched gigs that are live, I've actually still got some kind of excitement out of it. It's definitely still more effective watching a live performance than a pre-recorded, say like a music video. That doesn't really, you know, that's kind of stylish and stuff, but it doesn't really draw up any of that buzz that you get when you see something live. And I've watched some live gigs and I've really felt quite excited, just like in my kitchen, thinking, wow, live music really does move me, even through the internet. But it's not the same. And also financially, it's not sustainable, because I don't think people are that willing to buy tickets to online gigs as much as they would be to a venue gig. And I know that from experience. I play in a band where on that December bit, you know, we were all set free and everything was open and we thought it was all okay. I did like 4 gigs in one weekend, and it was sold out. People came and were so pleased. People were crying, saying, you don't realize how much I've missed live music. Like, they were really moved. And that was great. But the same band, we've tried to do online gigs and sell tickets for less, for probably a quarter of the price, but people aren't willing to invest, because I suppose that, I don't know if they see the value in it, or they just feel like, well, I'm sat at home. It's, you know, like when you pay to see a gig, you're not just paying for the music, you're paying to go out, like you say, for the experience. So I don't know what the answer is. I think we should stay in the game, even if we feel disheartened. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. And we can still make work. Like, I'm at home practicing my craft as much as I can without going mad, you know, like practicing whatever bits I can do for when it comes back, for when opportunities do come. But yeah, it's emotionally hard, draining.
Yeah, and I mean, and like I say, Antique, you were the first one to kind of answer the question before I even asked it. You were already talking about it and what direction you think the creative industry alongside it now should take after the Black Lives Matter. It's not after, it's during, isn't it? And COVID-19, and you kind of touched on that. And so I'm going to sort of lead you into the next question, start with you, Antique. And the question is, where is the creative industry right now in light of Black Lives Matter movement and COVID-19? Where do you feel it is, maybe in terms of, you talked about, which was interesting to Musicians Union, you thought you've had support. What's your thoughts on the government, the funding, or what they're actually doing to support creatives?
I just have to say, about government, because, you know, don't you remember when, was it Saeed or whatever his name is, he tried to say that musicians should go and, I don't know, retrain and do something else. And I was just thinking, hold on a minute, I'm doing this for over 10 years and I've actually done, like, you know, studied towards it and got qualifications, so then I must go and retrain to do what now? I do a teaching, you know, the upper side to what I do, but it's all still creativity. And I was just thinking, what? And then in terms of, like, I always get updates from, like, the musicians help, I think it's Musicians Union, yeah. And they were saying they're not really that supportive of the creative fields. And, you know, the creative industry was one of the last industries, from what I've researched, to even get help with funding and, you know, stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people in the creative industry, like freelancers and all kinds of things, and you know, and sole traders and whatnot. So I just think that they were the last to, like, really get any kind of help and support, even to be added to the furlough. I don't know if you remember. I don't think you could get furlough or something like that if you was a creative. I'm not sure, I can't remember, you'd have to look into it, but it was something like that. Luckily that didn't affect me, so that's why I don't know too much about it. But one of the things I was doing is, as a creative, I felt like I needed to save some money, so I just called up a lot of like food banks and stuff like that, and they were really helpful with supporting me as well. And I just applied for loads of different like support schemes for creative artists, basically. I remember there was like about 3 months I was doing, like, this is an exaggeration, but it just felt like 100 applications, like trying to apply for finances and funding to support my EP, the production of it, and all different types of things for hardship funds and all of that. So yeah.
Do you feel like there are things out there then in where we are at the moment? So there are places, things available.
Yeah, but there's so many creatives that, you know, this competition is quite stiff. Do you know what I mean? Especially like, even for like, I saw after a couple of months into the COVID, you know, if you're an actress or actor, or you make documentary stuff, you can go to the Arts Council if you're doing theatre and things like that. But before, it wasn't really anything like that. Like, it was just, it wasn't really, there wasn't really any support, really, to be honest. It's like they forgot about us. We were like the last people that they thought of. But I think the creative industries are one of the most important industries, to be honest with you. Yeah. In terms of like humanity and connecting people and in human connection and just thinking about innovative ways to do things. Like, if you don't have creativity, then you won't be able to really do that kind of stuff, you know?
100%. I think it's always in
what was the other question?
The other question, well, so I mean, this is, well, it's interesting because, like you said, there's been some real positive shiftings. There were some negatives, as we discussed, but there's been some positive shifts in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement. So as a Black female artist, do you feel that possibly, although COVID has spun us, you know, the full way, you know, into a real sort of difficult place, do you feel there's been some positive responses to you that you maybe didn't feel before as a Black female artist?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. There has. But even for me, it had me questioning, because even though society sees me as a Black female, I could actually say I'm not actually like Black, even though the Black community would say to me, no, you are Black. But my mum is white. So it got me questioning as well about identity, because when I wanted to apply for like some of the funds that were specifically for Black artists, I was like, do I apply or not? Am I taking away opportunities from a Black female or male if I go and apply for that? So it had me questioning a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Even though, I don't know, it's kind of, identity is it's a bit crazy. I just don't really see. Anyway, I don't want to go into all of that, but it made me question, should I be applying for this kind of stuff as well, actually? Because, I don't know.
Well, that's fair enough. Personal perspective, and we want to hear that, Antique, and there are many women out there that will relate to you. I'm a mixed race woman and I'm a lot lighter skinned than...
Are you?
I know.
Really? I thought you were white. What the heck?
My dad's Jamaican.
Oh, wow. That's mad. I thought you was a white woman. Sorry, but yeah, you see?
I know. I mean, this is, like you say, does it really matter? But I guess it comes back to the old Jim Crow one drop, doesn't it? And I consider I have this very sort of battle with myself. And there'll be other women out there like you and like me that are lighter skinned than someone else or whatever. And it's all relative, isn't it? But you're right. I mean, in castings, I can be cast as a Caucasian character or a Spanish or whatever. So it's relevant. You know, there's colorism, which is a huge problem in the world, society all over the world. So it is absolutely valid. Put a little beeping there. Is there anyone? Oh, okay, it's gone now. Hopefully, it's an alarm telling us that COVID's finished and we can go back to.
I've got something to say.
I was going to say. And one thing I was thinking about with the Black Lives Matter thing, I think it's very good and it's positive and all that jazz. And there's been a lot of funding for like Black artists and, you know, people actually celebrating Black artists. But I do think it has caused a little bit of a like division-ish. Do you know what I mean? Kind of. And in certain ways, like it is. I don't know, it's like racism, it causes a division, innit? The Black Lives Matter, I think it has caused a bit of like, what side are you on and all this other nonsense. I don't know, it's just been a bit weird for me anyway.
I think it has for all of us, and everybody's, you know, unfortunately the internet's heightening everybody with so many opinions flying around, of course, you know, which, you know, I don't know, you I can see you're a lot younger than me anyway, not to patronize you, but around my time, there wasn't so much of that going on, but it's created so much more division. And thank you for that, Antique. And what about you, Karl? What's your feeling and where we are actually at in the light of this at the moment?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from Antique's, what she was talking about with the Black Lives Matter. I kind of totally agree with that. I think there has been some opportunities for, you know, like Black artists and things like that. But I also think it's important not to, well, I think it does kind of sometimes create division. I think that, like, as a Black artist myself, I think it's really important to try and do things. You want to kind of know that when you're getting opportunities, they're coming from the fact that you've earned them, you know, that there's like, you know, you don't want to kind of, I just think it's a shame that in like 2021, that there is all of these, you know, like these special kind of pots and things like that. And I think it does really say a lot about society that we have to have these special pots for, you know, Black artists and stuff like that. Can't, you know, I guess the goal is to just have a level playing field of equality for everyone. So I know sometimes as an artist, it is trendy, and I could play with the trend sometimes and think, well, look, okay, they're doing funding for like, you know, Black artists and like, you know, this and that. And, you know, I can jump on this bandwagon for a while, but, you know, it's really not my style. It just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth, like even having to kind of put my, you know, even consider such things. So in regards to like Black Lives Matter, like in the creative industries, I just hope that it's sustainable and it can be done in subtle ways where it kind of just breaks down, doesn't make a big deal of it. Because on top of that, there is this whole, you know, like marketing aspect of it, this whole idea of, you know, like organizations want to be seen promoting like Black culture and stuff like that. It's, you know, it's another thing that they can then take back to their funders and say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. We're helping Black people in the community. So it's a complex web of just like hierarchies and different kinds of like positions of people. And I would like to see that it just kind of levels out if they are making, you know, pushing Black people into like more better positions, that it's done on merit and they don't make a big deal out of it, and it can just be kind of more equal. So let's just hope that after all of this, the support's there, the light's been, you know, shone on it. Let's just hope that afterwards we can have this thing where it's a bit more low key, you know, with the foundations there of what it means, and go forward, you know, in a bit more of a unified way.
Yeah, I really understand. So many people I've spoken to and seen things, and you know, this thing of, you know, you are a photographer, you are a man, you're an artist, you know, but they're talking about this uncomfortable thing that has to come up all the time, you know, and always has, and it's funny because we talk about after, and you kind of go, well, after was in the 40s, after was in the 60s, after, I mean, that's my personal feeling. Is there going to be an after? Are we going to get a level playing field out there, and where we can all just forget about what race we are or what we look like? You know, it would be nice, wouldn't it? And what about you, Mark? What's your feeling where we actually are at right now in life?
Well, yeah, I mean, as Karl said, that it's got to be done on merit. Everything's got to be done on merit, and I think that begins with your ideas, whatever ideas you've got. They got to be. I mean, that's how I've made a go of this. Is getting through to the meetings has been very, very tough. I mean, getting meetings with executives and anyone who's got the power to make these things is very tough. I've been in a couple of meetings. The minute I open my mouth, they look at me and think the bins are outside, mate. You know, it's completely. I shouldn't really be.
Sorry,
and I felt that for quite a while. Then I suddenly realised, well, you know what? I don't mind. The idea got me in there. I'll take that idea somewhere else, and I'll make that happen my way. Which is, you know, my old man, God bless him, would say, if you can't go through the door, go through the window. You know, literally, You've got to find another way. And so, I think that happens, whatever colour you might be. I think that's really, sometimes that's the reality. I mean, going back to what Antique said about Rishi, I was offended by that, you wouldn't believe. Like, basically, one thing we're all trying to do is create. And if that isn't available to you, go and do something else. What's everyone missing? Everyone's missing the creation. They're missing the music. They're missing the art. They're missing the photography. Everybody across the board. So if we're not doing that, where are they going to go? They're going to. What's left? I've done millions of jobs to get to this point, and 9 to 5 work, and I rejected that in the end, thinking, not for me. I've done it. I've got, I'll survive, and I'll go and try something else. And I'll put the same application to that I did in my 9 to 5 world into my creative world. But this, at the moment, we've been cut off at the knees. We've all been, and the funding thing, I find it very difficult. I've tried the Arts Council. I've tried other bodies. It's very, very tough. It's almost like a full-time job to get a grant. I mean, I just failed completely. So my way is to try and raise the money myself. I try and find investors. I try and do yet another job, and I put the money from that job into another job. And thank God I got a good wife who says to me, as long as that's paid, you can use that bit and go and find someone to make that as cheap as you can. And that's what I've done. And really, by making that stuff, it could be the cheapest thing in the world, really, in some ways. And it could be a bit rough around the edges. But now with the internet, YouTube, whatever, you can upload it, you can then send that and start networking. That becomes your calling card. Whatever you make becomes your calling card. And that can lead to nice situations and other worlds. But look, there's no shortcuts. This is what I find, there's no shortcuts. It's graft. And again, it's always who you know. You try and use that. We all do that. We all try and use who we know. And ring those guys up and say, you got any contacts in that field, or do you know anybody who does that? And then, you can't always pay them, but you can always say, look, it's portfolio. We can, if I get the gig, you can come and work with me. And that's how I've done that since 2008. And it's worked. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. But I think going forward, my big concern is what's out there. But what I know is it won't stop me personally. It won't stop me. If I start at a very small level again, I'll go again. I mean, as long as I've got a bit of energy left, I'll just keep trying to create, really.
Yeah, and that's all one could do, I guess. And like you said, actually, Mark, it's a very interesting point there, because it can be quite a stressful process when you're already dealing with your mental health maybe declining because as an artist, and you're having to fill in forms and get knocked back and trying to find, and obviously that, of course, I'm not saying people shouldn't do that and whatnot, or can't do that, but it can be quite a stressful process, that whole thing as well.
Yeah.
Getting knocked back and constantly, it's hard enough as it is, as we've all kind of touched on. And interesting as well, you said about when you can open your mouth. And I mean, I'm from South London, and my accent's probably sort of disappeared a bit, really, because I've moved out from South London when I was about 17. So as a lot of my mates say, I've got a bit posher, but and I can, but yeah, so yeah, that can be, it's another thing to deal with as well.
I refuse to change my accent. I refuse. I'm a product of my environment. This is what I am. So I've been told many times. I've been on the radio and telly, and you should try and refine that a bit, mate. It's a bit heavy. I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. It ain't changing.
Yeah.
If I don't get another gig on radio, that don't bother me either. I'm still going to be that person,
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's no better than sort of, the same thing with people's race, wanting them not to be too black or not too Asian or not.
Yeah, well, I work for a tailor, George is Jamaican, George in his 60s. I do a bit of work for him. He says, it's all right pissing and moaning bags. Put a black face on it, mate. Then literally, there's another level from where you are to where he is, and I get. Look, I'm out of Peckham, so I get this thing as much as a man of my colour's ever going to get it. I get it. I know how tough it is. It's a battle for everybody, but it's different levels of that battle. And I just think if we try, if the good people try and stick together and work through it, there's half a chance. But it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be a given. There'll always be people like Rishi Sunak. Yeah. You're never going to change that attitude where they are. Fine, that's up to them. I disregard a lot of what they do and just do my own thing, really.
Well, we we, inverted commas there, voted for it. So there you go. But thank you for that, Mark. And Alice, so we've discussed where we're at. We're at in the industry, and we are at a place where Rishi's asking us to go out there and do something else, to train us something else in the middle of a pandemic. How do you feel about that? What are you thinking of doing, Alice?
I thought that was shocking. You know, like, it was so insulting to all creatives. And ironically, I thought most creatives are more trained in their discipline than people in other jobs that are being paid loads of furlough money, and even politicians. You know, like, a lot of us have dedicated our lives to our craft, and being told to retrain, like, it was just, yeah. And it was already bad because a lot of people weren't offered any money by the government. Luckily, there are unions like Help Musicians UK, Musicians Union, also Netflix and Sam Mendes, because a lot of actors didn't get anything, even though they're self-employed. When they applied for the, a lot of my friends, when they applied for the grant, they didn't get it for some reason. They didn't qualify. I don't know why. So then Netflix did this thing where if you were an actor and you could prove that you had worked in the last 3 years, they gave some money, just like one-off payments.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but they had to step. Well, they didn't have to step in. It's kind they did, but it's because the government didn't. There's such a lack of appreciation of the arts, and it's so unfair. I don't know why it's so undervalued.
Yeah,
by the government. You know,
it's a real problem, isn't it? And it's proved to be in this place. So the answer to that question is really, we're not in the greatest place, are we? As in light of the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm not really sure, but I would say probably similar. The government's attitudes towards the Black Lives Matter movement weren't exactly positive and embracing by most of them. And leading on to something else, which is sort of, you know, in the same area, I guess. And the question is, why does the creative industry still require investment during COVID? Why do we need investment, guys? And what would you say about that, Karl?
I think it's. I would think it would be quite obvious, but, like, you know, it's really it's like, for me, the creative industry's really just kept this whole ship afloat. Really, I think it's when you really think about the impact that COVID has had on the public, I think people have sought refuge in the creative industries in all its different variety and forms. You know, whether it's been, of course, things have had to be shifted to online platforms, and you know, a lot of the films have had to go online and things like that. People haven't been able to go into the cinemas, etc. And the music, it's all pretty much gone online in different departments. But it really kind of enforces that this is what gives us comfort. This is really what lies at the, you know, a big part of the human condition. This is something that, you know, you're just before leading into this question, we're saying, well, why are the creative industry so underfunded? When you really think about the joy, when you really think about the conversations, when you really think about the dialogues that occur through the creative industries and arts and culture, you know, it's very, you know, to me at least, obvious why this needs to be funded, and actually funded quite heavily, you know, as well, you know, because I think that it's more than just, you know, it has so much value to people's lives. So definitely, I think it's needs a lot of all the investment it can get, really, I think.
And Teak, surely we need, don't we? We need investment from the government, don't we? We need it from as many places as possible to do.
Yeah, because just thinking after what's his name, Karl?
Yep.
Is it Karl?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know, the creative industries, whether it's, you know, the creative media, entertainment, whatever it is, like, it's so important for learning, to have fun, to engage people, like, in all realms of society, even in business. Like, we need creativity, we need the creative arts, we need it. Like, there's no if, buts, or maybe. And I think that we bring about healing in the world. We bring about upliftment and inspiration and motivation. When you're watching a film, when you're in your house, if you're watching a film, there's music. If you want to listen to music now, you need to see visuals. Like, there's just so many, you know, from drawing to all sorts of things. I just think it's just so important. That's why we need it. And I was thinking about, sometimes people have asked me, can I do a gig for them? And I'll say, yeah, so, you know, this, my rents, whatever. Oh, you know, we don't really have a budget for entertainment. I'm thinking, but my thing is basically the main, like, you might have a showcase and you want artists to come there. You don't have an entertainment budget. I think people like, is it Ellie, the lady who was just speaking a minute ago?
Alice.
Alice, sorry, Alice. Like Alice was saying, like, people, they don't really value what we do. But yeah. we have we're like Spider-Man. We have great responsibility. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, seriously, we have superpowers that enable the rest of the world to keep moving. I'm sorry, but we do. When everyone's depressed and down, and if they went to music, they went to watch something funny, they went to look at a picture, you know, they didn't go and I don't know what they did, but those things helped people to get through this time. And it's been like that throughout history, throughout eternity. And I just really feel that we need to be funded. We need to be funded.
I think that people agree, you know, like audience members do actually, they've said to me, wow, we appreciate music more than ever now that we can't see it. I think the public in general do get how important art is, even if they're not artists. I think and even more now since the pandemic, when it's been taken away from them, the opportunity to go and see live music or go and see a show, theatre, they're happy to come back, and they're happy to, like, when I released my music online, people would send me money on PayPal. I think people are really kind and appreciative. It's the government that should be doing something or doing more, because it does. There's an ignorance to how this starts. Like these small venues that are being shut down, like how films get made at roots level. It's not just things that don't start in Netflix. You know, we have to have a chance to actually grow and learn, and that's why from the roots up there needs to be a support. And there doesn't seem to be. It just seems to be like consume, but not, you know, like tend to it and help it grow.
Yeah, I mean, Alice, I don't know if you think that. Do you feel there was a bit of a backlash from the public as well? I noticed a lot of this, almost like the Victorian times, when they've got artists in, you know, they're throwing vegetables at you and kind of, you know, treating you like that old-fashioned way of, you know, these sort of pampered artists, get up there and entertain us and stop complaining, and, you know, too bad if you won't make any money, and why do you, you know, there was did you notice that?
I used to feel that more. I used to maybe be the musician in the room and no one even knew I was there, perhaps, you know, if I was playing the piano or whatever. And since then, people have said, wow, I really value what you do more. They're the conversations I've had. That's just my personal experience.
Yeah, and leading on, I'm going to keep on with you, Alice, leading, because we're going to move on a bit as the show, it will be winding up soon, but I have a couple more questions I want you all to sort of think about and talk to us about. So when do you believe things will get back to the usual way of operating in the creative industry? And are we looking at a new way of working? And what do you think it looks like? I mean, what do you think? What's your take on all of that in light of this pandemic we are in?
I've been told by my acting agents that in the summer is when we should hope things to be back. But I know outdoor theatre is going to be a bigger thing. There's always been the outdoor theatre at Regent's Park, but there's going to be more of that now, because in light of what happened last year, a lot of theatre companies realised that we can do plays outside. But there's still that argument about people were allowed to sit on a flight wearing masks, but not in a theatre. You know, and it's just like, that's the argument. So I don't know when it'll be back to normal. Like, you know, we all want it to be sort of as soon as possible. And whether it'll be changed, I can't see it going back to normal. It's going to be reduced audiences, which is going to be reduced finances, which puts, you know, like restrictions on the productions that can happen. So, yeah, I don't know. I can only hope for the best. And there's more things being made online. I suppose we've got to find our way, like Mark said, like chip away with. If you can't go in the door, go in the window, find a new way.
This is something to think about, isn't it? And it is the billion-dollar question. And what about you, Karl, in terms of being a photographer? What do you think? How do you think that things are going to? Is there a new way? Have you heard anything in the? Have you got any sort of secret knowledge?
No, not specifically. I think that lots of galleries, you know, there's been a start-stop kind of culture throughout the pandemic. So it's very hard to kind of anticipate when things will go completely back to normal. But, you know, I think that summer, maybe like, you know, July, August would be a good indication from what I'm hearing from, you know, lots of industry people inside the arts. But when it does open, of course, it's going to be a completely different experience still. You know, there's still going to be like the masks. There's still going to be you know, potentially like social distancing. So a lot of things will still be online. And I think that lots of arts institutions are gearing their like models, their business models and plans to do more online engagement. So I guess that will be just, you know, I think that they've worked so well. People have realized how it was almost like a big, massive pilot for like how well would online, you know, like interaction work. And we now know it's incredibly like popular, and a lot more has come out of that. So I think that a lot of the institutions will be still continuing that, and that will be something that they just move forward with part of their like business model and their outreach and their social engagement program.
Yeah, and I mean, are we kind of having to just really embrace and this what's going on and embracing this disconnection that we're having? Is it some sort of cosmos lesson for us all? Mark, what do you think about that kind of thing? Is this a lesson for us? Are we going to become better people? Are we going to start loving each other? Are we all going to be one? What's going to happen? What's your take?
I love you, Lisa. So that helps. I just think, you know, only time will tell. I think, you know, I really do think that as we come out of this, and you know, none of us know what's going to happen. Hopefully, it changes things for the better. All I know is listening to everyone today. I just wrote down, everyone's a storyteller. Whatever way your medium is, and those stories will still have to be told. Whether it's 5 people listening to it or 5 million people. Depends on. I always think depends on what level where you are in this industry, which I've never quite worked out, because to me it's mad. But anyway, wherever you are in it, you can find your place, and if you know, and you can still get those stories told, whether it's through photography, music, acting, whatever. And that is really, for me, that's all you can really hope for. And but again, how you tell those stories, or how people can get those stories in the future, I think only time will tell. And I think guys I'm speaking to in the music industry, they're telling us the summer is looking okay-ish for live work, whereas anything up before that is all in jeopardy. March, April, no one's really booking up anywhere, venues, because it's too uncertain. But hopefully by the summer we'll have a bit of freedom, and we can just test the water a little bit, really. And in the meantime, just keep us in a way, trying to get your things made, or get them in a place where when we finally get the freedom to go and act on those, we can push them through.
Brilliant, and a positive outlook there. Antique, are you feeling positive about where we might end? What does it look like to you in the next coming year or years? What's in your mind? Share with us.
In my mind, I've heard this so many times, like, oh yeah, like, I mean, from proper industry people that are in the industry, like, you know, big heads have said to me, oh yeah, I've been in meetings and they've said this and that, and I'm just like, I mean, it's not happened. So I don't know, because no one knew we're going to have lockdown 9. I'm just joking, but you know, we're now in lockdown 10 or 5 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. And you know, I've been actually looking at some news articles, and they said that, you know, if you don't have the jab, you're not going to have the job. And also they've said things like for the, you know, there's going to be trials. Sorry,
jab and go, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there's going to be trials where you have to have the vaccine like every couple of months for 3 years or something like that. And I was thinking 3 years. So that means that you're actually telling us that we're going to be like this for the next 3 years. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. All I know is that I was working on my EP and my hard drive crashed, so I need to go and sort that out. And I want to release my EP. I definitely think we need to capitalize on selling our music and stuff like that online, and try and do, well, if you're a musician, and try and do like some things online and get involved in projects that are going to raise the awareness about who you are and what you do, kind of like what what's his name? He's talked about the calling card, you know, do more things that you can, you know, build your portfolio with. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. That's how I feel. I just feel like I don't know, and I don't want to get my hopes up. But I am going to continue working on what I'm working on, so then I can be ready to kind of like go. But I think every creative's going to be doing that. So once everyone's out of lockdown, we're all going to go crazy, and there's going to be a big surge of like, look at this, look at this. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to be, it's going to be good. It's going to be good when we can all get out.
100%. We've got to keep our hope up, haven't we? And it kind of ties in with the last question. We've kind of all kind of touched on it really, and I think what's come up for me from all of you generally is as well that, you know, people paying, you know, when they can pay you, because we've talked about what can industries do. Spotify, there's a huge issue there where they're not paying artists, you know, and what's going on with that? So there's all that stuff that needs to come. That would be really helpful if we can kind of stop that kind of corruption that goes on with certain music bodies out there, and maybe it happens with like Karl said, people asking, or like you said, I think it was Antique, I don't know, you know, can you come and do this, but we haven't really got a budget. You know, there's been so much of that anyway, and people do have money. There are people out there with money. Not every sort of area or brand or whatever is struggling, as we're probably all aware. So we're coming up to the end now, so I'm going to ask this question. It's going to be, maybe if you give us a quick answer to this, guys, because unfortunately we have to wrap up. I could talk to you guys all day and listen to you all day. It's been wonderful. But this is my next question. And, you know, like Antique said, sometimes we just don't know the answer. But let's see if you maybe have an answer. Who is thinking differently about the approach they take to their work? And can you share if you've identified any new outcomes? So a new approach. So Alice, you're in the middle. I'm looking at you. What any new approaches there and things that you're actually thinking, new ways of if you identified any new outcomes?
I haven't found any solutions yet, but I'm still working, I guess, on self-improvement and what I can do to fit into this new landscape, because my career was very much performance-based, whether it was music or acting, and now it is all predominantly online, whether it's auditions or performances. So I'm just learning more about technology, social media, things like that. There's so much to learn. Like, there's so many YouTube tutorials about reaching bigger audiences and things like that. I find it really mind-numbing, actually. I'd much rather be with real people than this kind of whole cyber stuff. But I mean, I'm enjoying this Zoom, don't get me wrong. But I mean, in general, just living alone and just tapping in to sort of share. It's hard, but I'm working at it and just looking after my own mental health and doing things that are nice for me, really.
Yep, that's what it comes back to. That's a very good, me too, with the mental health thing, and sort of, you know, looking at other ways to kind of keep that mind into which is we'll let that creativity flow, I would imagine. Mark, what about you?
I've no real answers. I wish I had, but I think by, you know, even today, like taking part in things like this, you're trying to get engaged and pick the brains of other people that are in a similar situation, and you're trying to you know, maybe make a few connections and see what they're trying to do and what you're trying to do, and see if it can work in some way together. I don't know, but I just think it's going to be. I think it's really is going to wait and see what's out there when you go back. I mean, I was in the West End last week, and on one job I was in for an hour and out again, and it is like a complete and utter ghost town. I mean, I was Oxford Circus, Regent Street, Piccadilly, Trafalgar Square, and it was like the worst bank holiday Monday you've ever seen in your life. It was absolutely no one around. So I fear for what's left of, mainly for places where you can meet and do these things in person, cafes, bars, little restaurants, whatever. That's what I've been doing for the last 10, 15 years, is meeting people and getting a dialogue going, and what have you got and what can you provide and how can we do this? And I just hope them places are still there that we can hook up and catch up. And then, I mean, as for the work, who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? And what about you, Karl? Are you missing getting to sort of cafes and having these meetings with people and, you know, looking people in the eye? Because that's often what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, we're doing that on Zoom, but it's not quite the same, is it? So what's any new approaches or any ways you're thinking in terms of photography?
I'm just looking at, I think Zoom's been fantastic. You know, it's really opened. I never really even knew too much about Zoom until the pandemic. And then it all started to creep in. It was like Zoom, Microsoft Meets and stuff like that. So I think that I'm just going to try and incorporate a lot more like Zoom online, kind of, you know, use it as a platform. I think it's a great platform. it's really good to open up dialogues. I think sometimes artists can kind of, you know, not want to kind of do so much online because they're quite scared to put a lot of their work online and things like that. But I think just working and showing snippets online and trying to engage more with audiences is something that's made me really, from the pandemic, has made me really like interested in, and something that I'm going to continue, you know, as a method that I'm going to keep engaging with and trying to implement into like my practice, really.
Yeah, so similar to what Alice said, with the sort of thing, embracing the technology side of things maybe, and where we can go with it and what we can do. And last but definitely not least, Antique, what about you? So we'll finish with you. What about you? Any new kind of magical things that you've come up with, ways to do things?
Just the same as everybody else, really. I'm not really a social media person. I like to take like long detoxes because my mental health is just, you know, too much sometimes. But I think just to incorporate technology into my practice and sharing little snippets and just engaging people in those ways. I've had, it's been quite positive for me actually. Doing that. Another thing that I've really enjoyed doing is actually producing myself and getting the music out of my head, because I don't play an instrument. My voice is my instrument. So it's like, you know, like someone said, like working on my craft, but then finding new ways of expressing my creativity. And I've also been doing like visuals and stuff, and I'm not perfect, but I think what I'm doing is really, really good, and I'm really enjoying it. So I think finding ways to still bring joy into my practice and need to love it, that's what I'm focusing on. And then I think from then it will spiral out to everybody else. But that's where I'm at with it, yeah.
Wonderful. And on that note, guys, I want to thank you all for this wonderful discussion. There's so many things have come up, even for me personally. I'm sure people listening will find the same thing. We've touched on the pandemic. We've touched on what's happening with the industry in terms of the effects of the Black Lives Matter movement and the COVID movement, excuse me. Well, you know, the whole COVID thing, it's not a movement, is it? But I wish it would stop moving. But yeah, so you know, it's been wonderful talking to you. I really want to thank you all for coming on the show today, and I wish you all the best of luck. And what I have found from each and every one of you on this discussion is the positivity is beyond inspiring. So you're all on that tip. You've kept your hope up and you're keeping your hope alive, and I wish you all the best as going forward with your upcoming projects, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Stay safe, everyone.
And you.
Yeah, and can I just add one more thing, please?
Yes.
If you want to connect with me, it's Antique on social media. I'm open and welcome. I welcome you. So if you want to connect with me, do that and I'll connect with you. All right, bye.
Thanks, Antique. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers all. Bye.